Here it is.
All right,
Okay.
everybody's seeing the flag.
Oh, wow.
So again, I thought that this would be
Where am I
a
supposed
great way to talk about an American flag in a building that is kind of collapsing and falling down. So um, that's the beginning of the presentation. I would say next, if we can. Steve, are we able to go to the next one?
I did. People, are you seeing it? It's now like doors.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, yes. Okay. It's taking a moment for me to see them.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an abstract image, color digital. And I find that in the world today, things create abstract views without even trying, and we just have to notice them. Um, and we can move on to the next one, I think.
Is taking, for some reason, huge lag for him. There's something wrong with his laptop or something. I don't know. It's creating all these problems.
This is going to take for fucking ever.
Yeah.
All right. So we're now looking at, do
Yeah,
we have the next slide up?
we're looking at a figure photograph. This is a recent photograph. I work fairly often with the figure, and it represents a reasonable part of my work. I don't know what else to say about this. I typically work outside with natural light. Do not work in the studio, but again, this is images from 2025.
Okay. So I'm clicking next. And George, if you could just mention when you see it so that'll confirm that it's popped up to other people.
Okay, I see it.
Okay. So Mark, you can just start talking about this beach picture.
Yes, but I don't see the picture. I don't know what's.
George confirmed that people are seeing it now.
It's a picture of cabanas on a beach.
Yes, this. Well, yeah, but if I can't see the image, I can't talk about it. This is
Got it.
okay. Hold on. Uh, now I look. Well, now I've lost everything. I I am not seeing.
Would it help if we go to the next slide, then we kind of tell you what it is, and then you can talk about it because you kind of would know the picture if we described it to you.
Well, yes, but I'm
I know it's frustrating. I do, but I'm
no.
trying.
You have no idea how frustrating it is. Okay, now I'm back at least seeing the screen. Okay, I'm going to leave it this way. It'll be fine. So yeah, this is the cabanas in Cape May, and there was a storm coming in, and again, I appreciate this image because of the layers and the depth that are going on in the image, and I don't have too much to say about it, but that's it. Let's try moving to the next slide and see if this moves more quickly. Oh,
So see it. It actually went two slides.
yeah, we
Yeah.
went two
Okay.
slides.
There we go.
Can we go
Sorry.
back?
I
Yeah,
got
I do a lot of landscape photography, very little large scale landscape photography, generally looking fairly close up at details in the landscape. And as I say, I tend to see the abstract in almost everything I photograph in terms of how it is laid out and what I'm looking at in the image, which is lights and darks and those areas that are important.
it.
Um, again, this image is a fairly recent one, taken up near Long Lake in in any event. it's one I feel very strongly about. Next, let's see if it does it more quickly now. It does. Again, looking at buildings that manage to look abstract. And one of the things I wanted to talk about in the title of my presentation is things seen and lost. I mean, we talk about documentary photography and many other things, but in any sense, making images is a case of finding something that you respond to, making an image of it, and then within periods of time, whether it's a week or a month or years, that image will change. It will not look the same. The very first slide we looked at basically says no trespassing on it. The American flag is not there. This building is gone. It was completely torn down. It had looked like this for, I'm guessing, 30 or 40 years and gone. So in any event, as we get to some of my older photographs, I'll sort of explain that better. Next, please.
See it.
Okay, so this is from a fairly recent show that I had at Juniata College in 2018 or 2018, which then moved here to Atria. And this was the very first time that I had an all abstract show. I think I stayed away from that because I studied photography with an abstract expressionist painter at Juniata and didn't feel like I was comfortable enough. But this is a series, and there will be a few others of these abstract things. This one is an iPhone photograph. So I shoot with typically medium format, sometimes 4x5, and you'll see more of that, and I'll point it out when we get there. Next. Again, landscapes are a real focus of mine. And this is a 2¼ square image looking down into the lake surface and with the detail involved there. And, you know, in the digital world, I work really hard to do the same sorts of things I used to do in the film world. Controlling tonalities and so forth is something I'm pretty particular about. So I would say next, if we can. So there are maybe some guests of mine here that are getting a view to the past here. This is a photograph that was made black and white, 35 millimeter. I'm going to guess, 1975, 74. And it happens to be my sister, which I think she is participating in this meeting. So there it is. Next, if we can. Again, this is another one of these multi-layered images that functions as a photograph of a real place, and also something that tends to look to me very abstract in terms of the way it's structured on the surface. This is a film image from about 5 years ago. So I still shoot film and I still shoot digital, and I go back and forth. Next, if we can. So this is another one from the abstract show, and this is a photograph of a piece of metal that's about 2 inches by 2 inches, and this image is 24 inches square. And again, it is abstract, and at the same token begins to look like a landscape that we're seeing from a long distance in the air. But that show was, as I say, quite a challenge for me to get my arms around, and I'm really glad I did it, and I'm glad I was able to have it in Philadelphia as well as in central Pennsylvania. Next image. So, not that I am using photographs of my sister from years ago, but this is another 2¼ square image. This is a Rolly 28F, which I used until I got a larger single lens Rolly, but quite an interesting image in terms of, again, structure and where the light is going and not going, I think. And again, please, if you have questions, make a note of them and we'll deal with them at the end of the presentation. Next. Well, I don't do it as much as I used to, but this is an abandoned building and I occasionally get out and photograph them now. To give a little background, for any of you who are into old, torn down architecture, there was a place called White Marsh Hall, which was a building that was outside of Chestnut Hill. And I made a lot of photographs there, like 5,000 images over about 3 years, and had a show on that. But again, these are finding buildings that have seen better days, but again, dramatically are of interest to me. Next, please. Again, in going into abandoned buildings, you find interesting things, and this is fascinating. This is a digital image from my Nikon, which has a small flash on the top, and basically this is a part of a restroom or a bathroom, and we're looking at a ceiling surface, a wall surface, and then the tile at the bottom. But of course, the materials on the wall and ceiling have just invented themselves into a strange look here, which is quite fascinating to me. It's kind of an exciting image based on the tonalities. Next, if we can. Well, yes, I do work like this as well. This is a photograph of a mushroom on a piece of ceramics. And again, the way that the tonality of the mushroom and the plate kind of move in and out from each other is fascinating to me. This is, I think, a wonderful still life because of that dynamic between tonalities. And I would ask for other people who handle this if I'm going too fast or too slow.
Just about right.
Okay. I mean, this is obviously a figure study. This is film. This is done on film you can't get anymore. This is a Fuji near infrared film for 2¼ So this goes up. It will not create those really white highlights and so forth, but it's a fascinating film. And it also, depending on how you process this, you get this polarized look, which is on the film. There's nothing that was done to this image. I guess I can perhaps brag a little bit. This is in the permanent collection of the Woodmere Art Museum. And it may end up on their website shortly. So it's an image that I feel very strongly about. Next. This is from the abstract show, and this is yet another iPhone photograph. There are things you would do with an iPhone and things you wouldn't do, but for some of these close-up pieces like this, where it's color and so forth, it works pretty well. So the show that I did basically had everything from fairly large, high-resolution images to iPhone images, and was sorted out fairly nicely. I will say that this show originally was at Juniata College, and that was the 7th exhibition I've had there. Since my senior year, I had a one-man show there my senior year, and I've done 7 shows there, so it's been really good for me. And they have a museum program now, so I don't even they paint the walls, they put up the work, they organize it. It's saves me a lot of time. So it's a very great place to show. Next, please. This is a very recent film image from 2 years ago or so, and feel pretty strongly about this. And I do have a darkroom, so this is printed at home here. I don't print as much as I used to, but apparently I still can make it happen at some level. Next. This is also a film image. This was taken in Cape May at the dunes, Cape May Point, and again, I think partly this is here. I mean, I enjoy the photograph, but partly it is here. This is a scanned print, and it just shows off to a huge degree what film does. I mean, obviously, I work with film cameras, I work with digital cameras, but the tonality in her skin is, I think, pretty astonishing. Next. Aha, back to the abstract show. This is another one of these things that was about 2 by 3 inches that I photographed. And again, this is a 24-inch square print. And it really appears like stuff is floating off of the background. The black lines look like they're floating, but this was absolutely a very, very tiny flat piece that I photographed and then created an enlargement. And again, it fit in with the nature of that show and what I was trying to accomplish. Next. So I can't say this is the first photograph I ever made because I used to steal my father's camera and shoot images on slide film and so forth. But this is the first photograph that I took that I actually printed myself. It is 1972, Chestnut Hill East train station, and a photographer and a woman who carried around the rest of his gear that he couldn't carry. And it stuck with me because it's just so genuine in its own way and kind of fascinating. So that's about the oldest picture you'll see today. Next, if we can. This is it's obviously it's a landscape. It's at a place in the Pocono Mountains where my family has gone for years, and this is an inlet from the lake. This was a challenge to me because most of my black and white work ended up being double tone. It was a technique that I learned from a guy named Tom Carabasi, who learned it from, somebody higher up in the food chain. And it basically involved toning for the highlights and toning for the shadows, and then allowing the standard print tone in black and white to come through in the center. And this is not perfect, but I did this in Photoshop. So this is basically, toned in a number of different ways. And I think it works very well with this image. And it's also, I think, a decent landscape photograph. Don't know that I have more to say about it. If anybody has any questions, they can ask me about it. But on to the next one. This is a very, very recent image, but is definitely in keeping with how I look at the landscape and how I photograph the landscape. It seems like yearly I get closer to the subject matter, and again, it becomes more abstract to me anyway. If we look at this image, there's stuff going on in the center, there's things at the bottom there. It's creating a field that that to me is as much abstract as it is natural. And I just joke that nature has a way of being abstract in how it assembles itself. So, next, if we can. So this is this is the second one of these um, figure images, and this is kind of an interesting story because this was a 2 hour shoot in the middle of nowhere in central Pennsylvania, and the model and I were both finished. I mean, kind of done. And I started to put the camera away, and then I turned around and she was sitting on a rock and stretching. That's kind of what's happening here. And I think it's maybe the first time I ever said, "Don't move." And I basically got the camera out and made this image rather quickly. And I can say that the person that a dear friend of mine that I studied photography with at Juniata and is a friend of mine my entire life, he looked at this and simply said that in all of his life looking at all kinds of figure images, he had never seen an image that looked like this. And I took that, I guess, as a compliment. In any event. Next, please. Again, an abstract image. This happens to be a wall, a wall in down south, and it's just water sheeting down the thing, and creating this kind of a very abstract image. But it's a real place. I mean, I was there looking at it, and I just saw what I thought was potential for an abstract expression coming out of a real world scene. I don't have a lot more to say about that, but um, there we have it. Next, if we can. Again, I hope I'm not boring with the landscape photographs, but it is a bit of a passion, and I don't have a lot to say about this image, but for the moment, it's living with me because it's on my monitor as the in my office, so I see it every day. But that switches. Anyway, thank you. Next, if we can. Okay, so I had my sister in a couple of images. This happens to be my brother, um, and this is an interesting image. Um, Years ago, a person I knew gave me a camera that their dog had brought back in its mouth. And it was a Voigtlander Bessa 1932 Voigtlander folding camera. And what made this camera unique is most of these cameras use 620 film and, films that were harder to get. But the Voigtlander Bessa used 120. And I looked and went, cool. Then, of course, I tried to look through that little viewfinder that pops up, and I realized that you would only get some very remote hint of what you were pointing it at. And the second thing is that if you understand those cameras and the way they focused, and particularly close focused, anyway, I got a pair of dikes out and I cut the tab off that stopped the lens from rotating. So basically, this focal distance is probably about 3 foot. Couldn't see anything, and this is a full frame print from a Voigtlander Bessa. I must say I was quite thrilled that it came out. And it stuck with me a long time. These are, and any of these, this is, of course, a black and white image. And all these images have been scanned on a high level Epson scanner. So, and he's always friendly like that. That's his natural look. No, I'm joking. It's a little serious. On to the next, if we may. Again, a recent image, and most of the images I'm shooting now are with, okay, so I like high resolution cameras when I can, even if I occasionally shoot with older clunky stuff. Um, I purchased a Fuji 102 megapixel digital camera, and it is pretty shocking to me in that it ends up looking a lot more like film than digital. As the resolution gets better and better, it begins to kind of want to meet up with the film look at some level. So in any event, and this is sort of a kind of image that I'm looking at now, which is admittedly going back to pictorial kind of photography at some level. So next, if we may. I have to tell you, I'm not quite sure why I put this image in here, but there's something about it that I just find kind of fascinating, eerie, strange. Where are we looking? What is it doing? It is, partly a landscape, but I don't think it really qualifies in that regard. Has hints of abstraction in it. It's fascinating to me. Um, I have nothing more to say about it, but there it is. Next, if we can. So the woman who was bending over in the earlier image modeled for me quite a bit at Juniata. I had since graduated, but and I will just simply say, if you're working with a model, you should try to, if you can, control them. She is 35 feet up at a salt mine in central Pennsylvania on a piece of rock that maybe is her foot's on, that's maybe 4 inches wide. And I had no control at all over keeping this woman in line. All I kept thinking about is, I'm either going to get a great image or I'm going to be calling her parents saying that she fell off a cliff. But it does make for some interesting images, and I think this is one. Next, if we may. Again, things that you see that clearly exist and then don't exist anymore. This was a farm on Route 22 in Pennsylvania, and I was driving back after a weekend of doing photography, and I looked to the left and saw this and pulled the car off the road. Mercifully, I didn't pull it too far off the road, and got out and made this image. And the building is still there, but you would never know it. This expression, this visual expression, simply doesn't exist. It was something that was there at the moment and is just gone. And so the image lives on, even if the physical object is no longer present. And honestly, I have one of these, a print of one of these hanging on the wall in my house, not even framed, but the more I look at it, the more I go, I don't know what I did, but whatever it was, it worked at some level. So next, if we can. Aha. So I've also weirdly, not lately as much, but I've done pinhole photography, which is always exciting, and made a bunch of pinhole cameras. This is more interesting. This is shot with my Nikon with no lens on the camera. And basically, if you take the lens cap, and you can purchase these, I happen to get one from a customer of mine. I sell machine tools and measuring equipment, and I have a guy who makes really small holes, like down around a micron, 2 microns, 3 microns. So this was basically a lens cap with a little tiny hole in the center of it, and it makes this pinhole image, and it's fun to play with. And there we have it. It's a digital pinhole type device. Next, if we may. This is the remains of wallpaper in a log cabin that I'm guessing was about 130 years old. By the side of the road, I took some images of it, and then I walked in and I just saw this. On the most of the wallpaper had peeled off, and I just, again, this is a mysterious kind of space to me. Next, if we may. Well, I mean, I guess it's clear why I took this. You know, there are trees and there are buildings, and then there's a tree building. Quite fascinating. Took this in New York City. It's, again, they didn't want to cut the tree down, but the tree, you know what I'm saying, that it is just quite humorous. And I think this is great for photographers to keep their eyes open for things that challenge you, things that you may want to look at, explore, find a way to express it in a photographic image. So an interesting image, I think. Next. I think we're getting to the end of this, and I have a few words to say once I get, is this the last image? I can't tell from here, but I think it might be.
It is.
Okay, so I'm gonna say a few words about this image, and then I'm going to. I have a couple of notes, and I'll maybe talk about some things for a moment. So this is a great one. Speaking of things that don't exist anymore, I stood out on the tiny. I would not call it a deck. I would call it a place where you climb through the window, and probably you should not have been out there in this hotel. And I made this image looking down with the Rolly 2.8, 2.25 camera. The hotel I took it from doesn't exist anymore. The Marriott was built there, and this theater doesn't exist anymore either. So again, stuff disappears, but the image itself again is literal and also strangely kind of surreal. I like this image a lot. So I believe this is the last image, and I made some notes, and I'm hoping that if you guys can listen to me for just a minute, it will be helpful. First of all, I think that, I mean, many of us have made images for a long time. Many of us have studied the history of photography and photographers in that history. And I think that's really important. And I think it's particularly important for younger photographers. I think you need to know what came before, what was done, and how it was done. I have some wonderful comments from people I studied with and people I didn't. I did not study with Ansel Adams, but Ansel Adams said that a genuine artistic photograph cannot be constrained by or explained with words. And I think that's important to keep in mind. I also studied 3 times with a guy named Ralph Gibson, who is a minimalist photographer from New York and quite an interesting guy. And, you know, he told me at one point in a workshop, he said, look, everyone has sources. The key is how well you hide them, which is, I think, a great line. The other thing, too, is that there are things we do. I had some portraits here. There are things we do that we think we're good at. And then there are things we do and we like to do them, but we don't think we're very good. I took a workshop with a guy named Larry Fink. Some of you may know Larry Fink. He's published a bunch of books, and he photographs people without knowing that they're being photographed. It's his world. And I took a workshop with him, and I got in with my regular work, but I brought portraits with me, and I was frightened to death to show him. But finally, I gave him a stack of portraits, and he looked at them, a long time. And finally, he said, "These are incredible photographs of you, Mark." And I was completely taken aback. I didn't understand it at all until I had a chance to really think about it. But in his world, he photographed people without them knowing that they were being photographed. And he said, in every one of your photographs, it is clear that you are, in a way, the subject of the photograph. You are photographing the person who is looking at you. And after that, I became far more comfortable, at least knowing where my portrait work was going. Again, I said I see the abstract work in much of what I do. Also, Ralph Gibson said, uh, which is, I think, very important, you need to answer some questions. Where are you going as a photographer? Where do you want to be? And what's standing in your way? I think rather than take random photographs, a process, a something that you can work on in a group really gets you to study the images better. So I hope this has been helpful. I really apologize for what went on. I think I finally now at least have a screen that's back to seeing things, and I I love technology and I live in fear of technology. It's quite a dichotomy. So I hope that has helped. Questions?